And then we get into an issue with immigration, which is to the extent that you are inviting people in whose values are at odds with the values that the self-governing entity has agreed upon, what do you do about that?
Yeah,
do you require embrace of the local values, or do you tolerate alternative values existing in some sort of pocket?
It's a very real problem that you're going to feel a moral duty to allow in a family that have survived a war in Syria where they were at risk of being enslaved by ISIS. And the high probability is that that same family unit, when you let them into a Western society, will hold ideas that could be homophobic, could also be anti-woman, could believe in death for blasphemy. And the same family unit that, on the one end, deserve your total sympathy and empathy, also have ideas
by the way,
that could be hostile to others in your society.
I find this one fascinating because a little while ago I was... I mean, I've had, like Maajid, I think various other people have, done a lot of traveling in my career and traveled a lot of the world and seen some of the world's trouble spots up close. And it has always given me exactly the inverse of the kind of tub-thumping view that some people might ascribe to people like me. And it's the inverse because what it's persuaded me of is not the luck, but a sense of the fragility of a culture like the one I'm from. I'm not persuaded that it's a natural default of our species. I'm not persuaded that it's all that strong. I think, for instance, I mean, we've talked about this before, Eric, I'm not persuaded that the Enlightenment values that I think everyone on this stage shares an admiration for have gone down that deep or that wide, even in our own societies. So I'm not that persuaded that what I describe as the parochialism of the internationalists is a good response to this set of challenges. Because let me give you another example, by the way, which feeds off the example that Maajid just gave. Because we are actually able to have some of that conversation in other scenarios. Last year I went to report on the war going on in the north of Nigeria. And there's a form of tribal and also religious conflict going on. And I was traveling around these villages, which are Christian villages, which are being attacked by these particular Fulani herdsmen. And they're coming on a regular basis, and they're raping women, they're macheteing pregnant women, and it's just hell, what's going on there. I came back to the UK, I was writing about it a bit, and I was just very struck by the number of friends of mine who I was describing this terrible situation to, who would say things to me, things like, well, the Nigerian churches are very homophobic. And I'd be like, what? Well, I just don't have much sympathy for the Nigerian Christians. I mean, they're not attractive victims.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, sorry, the girl who'd just been shot through the leg, who was 4, doesn't strike me as being a useful person to take out your particular quibbles about homophobia in the Anglican Communion. Why are you doing that? But they can in that situation, or at least they feel kind of able to, and yet you have another situation, you say, a Syrian family, we're nowhere near that conversation in that.
And to give some facts to what you're just saying there, so the fragility of our values and the fact that our lack of defense over the course of the last decade or more for those values has actually led to their erosion in many instances. Just look at how fragile they are. So if you survey, the last known survey done of British Muslims' attitudes towards homosexuality found 53% said that they would criminalize homosexuality if they were in power. And that's British Muslims born and raised in that country. That's not gay marriage they're saying they would outlaw. It's being gay that they said they would outlaw. 53%, by the way, is not an insignificant minority that is on the fringes. That's a majority.
And do you remember the 2010 when the same thing was done? They asked different communities in the UK what their tolerance was. They came up in the UK Muslim community, 0% tolerance
towards being gay. 0%. Found it morally acceptable.
And it was like, is this like, you don't like civil partnerships? No.
Being gay. And there's one more. There's one more for you. After the Charlie Hebdo massacres in France, when the Charlie Hebdo magazine was attacked by jihadists, a quarter of British Muslims responded to a survey suggesting they had sympathy for the attackers and not the attacked. So this is why values are relevant. Because, of course, I think it's a no-brainer that we on the center-left make a connection and say, if racism spreads in society, it makes it easier for people to be racist, which makes it easier for people to discriminate against others because of what they look like and their racial groups. But we somehow don't make that connection with extremist thoughts. And this is the failure of the left, or label it the regressive left, that we don't join those dots and say, if a significant enough people in our society's belief that blasphemers should be killed, it makes it easier for blasphemers to be killed.
But don't we have to point a mirror at ourselves in order to finish this out? In other words, there are certain things that we can look at, these extremist beliefs, and we can say, and I think with plenty of justification, those are inferior beliefs. They are abhorrent. On the other hand, so dare I guess.
Go on.
Don't
That's what it sounds
self-censor.
like.
Come on.
Yeah, that's the. So
Twitter, get ready.